Oh my goodness. I got something I want to share with you, and I believe it's going to be very encouraging. I have a friend that she was hosting a Barbie themed birthday party for her birthday in another state. I wanted to go really badly, and I wanted my daughter to go as well. It was something that excited me because I grew up playing with Barbie. It was a great distraction away from all of the dysfunction and trauma that I've experienced in my life. And so I really, really wanted to go, but we weren't able to go. A few weeks later, I got an email from this modeling agency that I've been connected to. They sent me an exclusive invite, VIP status, for me to be a part of a Barbie themed event. And I was just excited. I kind of felt like God was bringing that opportunity around because he knew that that was something that brought me joy. So it was about joy, not necessarily so much about Barbie. However, Barbie was something that really was special to me because it was my great escape away from trauma and dysfunction, and it brought me joy as a child. So anytime I hear about Barbie, even as an adult, it just reminds me of the joy that it brought me. So when I found out that I got this exclusive invite, I was so happy, and I was like, I can't wait to allow my daughter to experience this with me. I'm like, look, we're gonna do the TikTok video, the pink, girls. Let's get it right. I was on her. I'm like, look, we gonna do this. Are you gonna be Linda or Heather? Which one? So we rehearsed and everything, and we were so excited. So yesterday was the day that we went. So I'm on my way. Me and the kids, we get in a car. The kids and I, we get in a car, and we're on our way on the highway. Then next thing you know, my tire, I'm hearing click, clack, clickety clack, boom, bump, bump, bump. I'm like, what is going on? I knew my tire had not burst, but I knew something was going on. So I'm like, this is not happening right now. I'm like, Lord, this is not happening. I decided to stop at a tire place. I go to this tire place. The guy from the tire place tells me that the installation and the fee will be like $200 something plus, and he won't be able to do it until tomorrow. And I'm like, I really want to go to this event because I know that my daughter and I, and even both my kids, were excited about experiencing this with me. I asked the guy, I said, do you think I could make it to my destination in the city? And he was like, nope. I'm like, well, do you at least think I'm gonna make it home? And he's like, barely. And I'm like, wow, either way, I'm taking a risk. He was telling me and suggesting that I would leave the car there so that he could fix it in the morning. I'm like, I don't want to do that. So I'm calling around and I'm asking places. I'm like, can you replace my tire and this and that? They're giving me astronomical numbers, and they're telling me not until tomorrow and this and that. So I was like, you know what? I know if I get to the city, I can find somewhere that is charging me less the price, and we can get to the event still. So I decided to do the unthinkable. I would not recommend this or suggest this to anybody. I decided to drive all the way to the city, and that was about a 45-minute drive from where I was. I was nervous because I'm like, oh my God, my tire could literally just explode right now. And I know sounds crazy to some people, but if you stick with me, I'm going to let you know what God did in this. So I'm driving, it's clickety clap, bump, bump, bump. And I'm driving and I'm like praying, Lord, please keep this tire together. I'm speaking in tongues. I'm calling on the name of the Lord. And I knew as I got closer that if we could just make it to the event, I don't want to miss this event. I can, after the event, go to a tire place that's nearby and we'll be fine. And I'll get a tire that's half the price. And I told my son was sitting there looking at me like I was crazy. He said, Mom, he's like, let's just go home. He's like, it's not worth it. And he's usually the voice of reason, but in this case, I recognized that the enemy was trying to steal my joy. It wasn't so much about the event. It was all about my joy. And I was at the point where I was like, I'm tired of letting the enemy win, because we wrestle not against flesh and blood. There are things that's in the atmosphere. There's things that the enemy uses to try to steal God's people of their joy. And I recognize that this was spiritual warfare going on. I was actually planning to service my car a couple of days before. And so I'm just like, this is not happening. And I'm still going to get there. I'm still going to go. I'm going to push, because I recognize, and I made the distinction between life happening versus the enemy trying to stop me, or there being some sort of spiritual warfare. And I refused to let the enemy win. I knew that this was something that was bringing me joy, and I knew this was something that God was giving me an opportunity about. I'm hearing bum, 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 and I'm like, Lord, please just keep this tire together until we get there. And I knew when I seen that big old pink Barbie building, we made it. And I pulled up and I parked, and I was like, we made it, kids. And I told myself that when I go in this building, I'm going to act like the stuff is not happening. I'm going to faith it until I make it. That means I'm not going to carry the weight of what was going on. I'm not going to carry the weight of my problems. The joy of the Lord is my strength. I'm going to enjoy myself, and I'm not going to let nothing stop me. I was determined to have joy regardless of what was going on. I go in there and it felt so good, because it was such a nostalgic experience, and my daughter was so happy. My son was happy. There was a message in this experience that even I believe God was not only teaching me, but he was teaching my children. I go in there and I'm treated with the utmost respect, and God gave me favor with the people that he wanted me to connect with. I ended up meeting a woman who was like an editor of a magazine. And I also met a journalist that interviewed me, and I was able to share with her my love for Barbie based off of my experience as a child and why it was so important to me. Not only that, as I was able to connect with the manager of the whole entire event, I realized that, wow, if I let the enemy win, if I decided to allow myself to be overcome by the circumstances, I would have missed out on that opportunity. That would not have happened if I would have went another time. So it was necessary, even the timing that I went. As we're leaving the event, tell me why my tire made no sounds. It was as if it never happened. And I turned back and I looked at my son, and I'm like, do you see what I see? Do you hear what I hear? Nothing. I found a tire place that was offering the tire for a major fraction of the cost. Not only that, is that place was about to close, and I made it just in time. In that moment, God taught me and my children a valuable lesson. When you're in tune to the Spirit of God, he will never lead you astray. There's things that, yes, we in our flesh, we may want, but then there's things that the Spirit of God is leading us to do. But there's also things that the enemy is trying to do. And I was able to make that distinction. And God actually elevated me in my faith, because I didn't allow that to stop me. And I was able to see, wait a minute, this is the enemy trying to steal my joy. I want to tell you that when the enemy is trying to rob you of your joy, you have to be determined to not allow nothing take your joy away. God has showed me that he wants his people, his children, to trust him and to lean only on him. That even when, if it's your car, your bills, if it's your relationships, your family, whatever is going on, we have to depend only on him. There's going to be a time where we don't have any choice. So he's developing his people, the real ones, in the secret place, so that when the time comes and these things that people depend on and lean on as their source, when that is stripped away, they don't have no other option but to look to God. And at that point, if they're not choosing God, if their heart and soul is wrapped up in these sources, these things outside of God, then that will be to their detriment. But those who have been walking this walk, who have been experiencing disappointment, disenchantment, experiencing so much behind closed doors, suffering in silence. God has really been using that to strengthen our relationship with him as his children. It's all for developmental purposes. And I'm learning, and I learned in that moment that, wow, God, you want me to trust you. I also want to share this. The reason why it was so important for me to not allow the enemy to steal my joy was because I knew that God was using this to bring me joy. Why? Because in the next few days, I'm going to have to testify in the case of my brother's murder by the police. This has been bringing so much grief to me. But this moment, this event was something that I was hopeful for. So I was determined to not let that stop me. I was determined to not allow anything to bring me down because of what's already going on. And I knew that that was the avenue that God was using to actually bring me hope in the middle of what's going on. I'm learning that God has to be the entire source of our strength. Even when he blesses us with our spouses, even when he sends people along, because he uses people, but he doesn't want us to lean and depend on people as our source, even though he uses people. I come to the realization that, wow, it's only me and God. I don't have anybody. Even with this case, me having to testify, I can't find one person to be by my side. When I try to look to the church, when I tried to look to people, they were nowhere to be found. And it's not so much about them choosing not to be. There's some cases where they're choosing not to be, but then there's some cases where people just have things going on in their life and they're not able to. But what I'm also seeing is that a lot of people, they have so much going on in their own world that when you're dealing with brokenness, when you're dealing with your own problems, everyone becomes more self-centered because they're trying to work through their own things. And it's hard for people to extend themselves and really pour into other people or really be there for other people without it being some sort of transactional type of thing, or without there being some sort of benefit to them besides giving God glory. I'm starting to recognize that, wow, I can't even depend on the church. I can't even look to the church as my source, because the church is not my source. We are the church. We are the body. And there's going to be a time where we can't get to the assembly and we may not be able to assemble. That's why we can't make the church an idol. We can't make congregating together an idol. It got to be all God. And it's all about relationship. It's not a religious thing. The people that I did reach out for help, they weren't able to. I haven't heard anything from them. And so God was showing me that you have to depend on me. Depend on the way he wants to bring you the help. And it may not look like how you think. And that's okay too. In this day and time, God is exposing hearts, and he's exposing the motivations and the intent behind people's actions in their heart. And this is how we really get to know God. And as we get to know God and as we draw closer to God, he starts to expose the darkness all around us. And then sometimes it does feel like you're alone, but you're not alone because he's with you. And it's not going to always be like this, but there's seasons where it's like this because of the path and the journey that he has, where we have to get to know him in a secret place, because the world is only going to change. However, in the world changing for the worse, God's people are going to be magnified. God's people are going to be representatives of his glory. We have to make a decision. Is this faith walk going to be real to us? Or is it going to be just an image? Are we going to just pretend like we are God's people? Or are we going to really be God's people?